What is going on, FA Nation? Justin Fensterman back with you, and it's Fantasy Football Stock Watch time. Let's talk trendy players, some trending up, others trending down when it comes to their fantasy football production as of late. Let's hit the marketplace. First, for a few players trending up, let's start with Rhamondre Stevenson. He hasn't rushed for fewer than 4 yards per carry since week 1. Even when Dameon Harris was healthy, Stevenson was still out-snapping him and has received 12 or more carries in 4 straight outings. He is the third biggest target share on the Patriots at over 12% and has caught 4 passes in 3 of his last 4 games. Stevenson has an excellent matchup coming up in Week 7 against the Bears, who have allowed the most rushing yards in the league. Even if Harris plays, it's still a good spot for Stevenson. Another running back trending up, Dameon Pierce. Coming off of the bye, the Texans' rookie running back is posting 4.8 yards per carry and has received a ton of volume, hitting the 20 carry mark in 2 of his last 3 contests. He's scored in 3 straight games, and we're seeing Pierce get targeted more in the Texans' passing attack, catching 9 balls on 11 targets combined in his last few battles. The Raiders, also coming off of a bye, will be a bit of a test for Pierce on the ground, but they are a bit more vulnerable, surrendering the 8th most receiving yards to running backs. Another player trending up, Lazard. After seeing a 12 to 13% target share in his first 2 games, Lazard has been given 20% of the Packers' targets or more in 3 of his last 4 battles. He's caught 4 touchdown passes this season, and only 2 wide receivers have more touchdown receptions than him. He's averaged over 14 yards per catch this year. Washington has surrendered 8 scores to wideouts, and they've allowed the 5th most receiving yards, and that's who the Packers face this weekend. From one Packer trending up to one Packer trending down, let's talk about Aaron Jones. It hasn't been the easiest stretch for him, and he hasn't hit the end zone since week 2. He's received fewer than 10% of the target share in both of his last 2 contests. A.J. Dillon is the bigger back and has been given more carries than Jones in 2 of his last 3 games. Jones hasn't been doing much in the air, not having caught more than 3 passes in any game, and has exceeded 30 yards receiving just 1 time this year. The Commanders are weaker against wide receivers than they are running backs, and that's who the Packers face before they challenge the Bills in Week 8, which will be a very hard matchup. Another running back trending down, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's received double-digit carries just once all year, but he's managed to still score 2 touchdowns on the ground. While he's also caught 3 touchdown passes, we've seen Edwards-Helaire's targets drop. He was thrown 12 balls combined in his first 3 games and just 6 combined in his last 3. If Edwards-Helaire isn't going to produce consistently on the ground, we'll need him catching passes for us to get that production we need. Jerick McKinnon was targeted 6 times in his last 2 games. He out-targeted Edwards-Helaire 3-0 in Week 6. Not ideal. The 49ers are up next, also not ideal, and they've allowed the second fewest amount of rushing yards, but they've allowed over 30 receptions to running backs. But based off the target distribution to running backs in Kansas City as of late, we can't feel safe that Edwards-Helaire will get targeted a lot in the passing game. Final faller, Elijah Moore. Moore scored 0 fantasy points after not being targeted in Week 6. Speaking of 0, that's the number of times he's hit the end zone this season. Moore hasn't caught more than 3 passes in 4 of his last 5 matchups. He has yet to produce a double-digit fantasy performance this season. The Jets spread their targets out with 5 players having at least a 10% target share. Zach Wilson has a lot of options to work with. The Broncos' defense has been pretty staunch versus receivers this season, and that's who the Jets face off against in Week 7.